Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder. Today we're diving into a document that promises everything and possibly delivers less. Kind of like that workout routine you swear you'll start next week. We're going to look into the XAI Octagon floating rate and alternative income trust. This company just filed a shelf registration statement, which is a fancy way of saying they're getting ready to sell a bunch of new shares, but haven't decided exactly when or how much. It is worth almost $378 million. Before we get started, if you are getting your investing news from YouTube, you are in the right place. Hit that like and subscribe and also join our Discord for free. The invitation is in the description. Scroll is filed with KITS, the Securities and Exchange Commission, on June 16, 2025. Scroll. Alright, let's start with the basics just by looking at the top. We can see that it was filled in June 16, 2025. Scroll registration statement under the securities clock. This is a registration statement with the SEC allowing them to sell securities later. They actually filed several of these, including for the Investment Company Act. They're also filing a number of amendments, which are basically corrections or updates. Scroll's ANOCT, Action Floating Rate and Alternative Income Trust Scroll. The document is for the XAI Octagon floating rate and alternative income trust. I bet that name took a while. The address is in Chicago, if you want to buy them gifts or something. Scroll from time to time give after the effective date of this registration statement, which is a roundabout way of saying whenever they want after the SEC says it's okay. Scroll a checkbox. If any securities being registered on this form will be offered on a delayed or continuous panel basis. Scroll. We see it's delayed or continuous, meaning they may sell these shares bit by bit over time, not all at once. The trust is AK2 qualified, which means they meet certain requirements to use a simplified registration process. Scroll, it's Accession 7, Abstention Emerging Growth Company, which is something only younger companies get. Now, to the heart of the filing, which is the prospectus. Scroll is subject to completion preliminary prospectus dated June 16, 2025. Scroll 6 is a preliminary prospectus, so it's not final yet. Keywords subject to completion. Scroll aggregate initial offering price I common shares of beneficial interest. Scroll. They're planning to offer up to 377,747,000 across common shares, preferred shares, and subscription rights for both. It means they might sell stock for that value or less, but we don't know for sure exactly how much. Scroll investment objective of the AFTRU Trust is to seek attractive total return with an emphasis on income generation. The investment objective is simple: to make money. Primarily through income, but remember there can be no assurance, reads the document. Scroll manage assets means the total assets of the trust, including assets attributable to the trust's use of leverage, minus the sum of its accrued liabilities. Scroll, they will be investing in floating rate credit instruments and other structured credit investments. Managed assets is defined as the total assets of the trust minus the sum of its accrued liabilities. This means they are going to use debt to fund these investments, other structured credit investments. Managed assets is defined as the total assets of the trust minus the sum of its accrued liabilities. This means they are going to use debt to fund these investments. Managed assets is defined as the total assets of the trust minus the sum of its accrued liabilities. This means they are going to use debt to fund these investments. The report then lays out their portfolio mix. This will include structured credit like CLOs, corporate credit, loans and bonds, and opportunistic credit investments, which is a nice way to say risky stuff. They are into below investment grade, which is AKI high yield, AKI junk bonds. Investing has risks, as we all know, but keep in mind shares of closed-end funds can trade at discounts. This has a risk section, which we will come back to later. Now into the people who run the show. The investment advisor is XAI Investments LLC, and the sub-advisor, the one actually picking the investments, is Octagon Credit Investors LLC. Some good news is that a while after this filing was issued, June 6 of 2025, common shares were valued at 6,007, and they were sold with a discount. Scroll, the trust, intends to pay substantially called as net investment income. Scroll. They plan to pay almost all net income to shareholders in monthly distributions, but no guarantee. It can be paid from any source and sometimes might be part of your capital back or return of capital. They use leverage or borrowed money to goose returns. They can do this through debt, preferred shares, or even fancy portfolio leverage like swaps if the limit is quite high. As of March of 2025, they had 227 million preferred shares, which we will into shortly. Before we do that thought, let's head over to the summary of trust expenses. Too bad, the report says that information is in the annual report. Oh well, X-Scroll, the financial highlights for the period ended March 31 COP5 are incorporated herein by reference. Scroll. What we do have, however, is some financial highlights dating to March of 2000, also incorporated by reference and not present in the prospectus. Well, luckily all is not lost. They do provide a handy table going back to 2017. Let us scroll to that one. Okay, this section is a bit useful. The ratio of their expenses to average net assets in 6.1 HXD%. While high, it may be misleading as to what this fund wants to do. As a CCLO fund, it needs to earn that much, otherwise it does not work. Other interesting metrics is ratio of net investment income including waivers to average net assets at 10.03%. Aggregate principal amount end of period is 38 million and asset coverage end of period per $1,000 is 3,020. It is all around great results with some risk considering that the company is invested in junk debt. And let's get back to preferred shares section. They can issue preferred shares which have priority over common shares. But first they note that under the 1940 Act they cannot issue unless they at least have 200% of preferred share coverage. Scroll D26 preferred. Shares have a liquidation preference of 25/20 share. Scroll T. They have 2026 term preferred shares due then with a liquidation preference of $25.20 a share. They also pay a quarterly dividend of $6.525 a share. They also pay a quarterly dividend of 6.5 shares have a liquidation preference of $25 a share. They also pay a quarterly dividend of $6.5 of $25 a share. They also pay a quarterly dividend of 6.5 of 2.26 tuppence of 25. They also have 6.95% Series 2 2029 convertible preferred shares, which have a liquidation preference of $25 and a quarterly dividend of 6.95%. The trust may also issue subscription rights in order to get money flowing in more easily. They included a new agreement on March 21, 25, which provided for $300 million with rates on sale file plus 1.48%. The negative convenience state limitation on indebtedness, liens, mergers, dividends, and investment. Now for anti-takeover stuff. They have provisions to limit control, basically making it hard for someone to take over the company. One key provision requires a supermajority to approve certain deals with 5% or greater shareholders. Scroll control share statute. Contained in subchapter 3 of the Delaware Statutory Trust Act. Scroll C. Because they are a Delaware statutory trust, they are subject to Delaware's Control Share Acquisition Statute. This is here to help prevent hostile takeovers by limiting the voting power on shares acquired above a certain point. To convert or open the fund, it would require 75% of majority of the board vote and shareholder vote. Alright, taxes. Like death, we cannot avoid them. The trust intends to act as a RISC, which means it avoids corporate tax by distributing income. Scroll distributions paid to US shareholders by the Q Trust from its net capital gains are taxable as long-term capital gains. Scroll. Importantly, distributions are taxable even if you reinvest them. Also remember the trust will send you information after the end of each year setting forth the amount and tax status of any distributions paid to you by the trust. The plane of distribution section states how they plan to sell the securities. They may sell them directly to purchasers, through agents, through underwriters, through dealers, or pursuant to the trust's dividend reinvestment plan. Scroll, they may engage in transactions that stabilize, maintain, or otherwise affect the on-market price of the common shares or any other security. And scroll for underwriters may try to stabilize the price during the offering, but they don't have to. This kind of keeps supply and demand at a reasonable level. And we end on the transfer agent is DST Systems, the custodian is US Bank NA. The independent registered public accounting firm is Cohen and Company Ol. Now let's step back and look at the bigger picture. This trust is basically planning to potentially sell a lot of shares while dealing with a rather complicated approach. The managers have the flexibility, but the investors have to be very careful of the complexities. It is, after all, junk debt. Scroll risks in Rother Trust's annual report is incorporated herein by reference. Scroll. It might be easy money, but it is worth noting the major risk section. You might want to read their previous annual report. So what's the final call? The XAI Octagon Trust is aiming for high income with some risky methods and can offer potentially high yields in junk bonds, but also high risk from junk bonds. For an average investor, I would say steer clear, but for more experienced investors, there might be an opportunity. Be prepared to handle lots of complexities and make sure you do all the research before putting any money in SICAD. Now, it's over to you, are closed junk or not, and would you put money in this trust? Don't forget to subscribe for more financial deep dives and ring that notification bell. And of course, join us on Discord. The invitation is waiting for you in the description. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay informed.